Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. This video will briefly discuss passport revocation in the context of delinquent U.S. taxes. There's another video on this channel which briefly discusses the general issues surrounding passport revocation, so I'm not going to go into the specifics of passport regulation or revocation in general. What I'm going to be talking about briefly in this video is passport revocation as a direct result of delinquent U.S. taxes. Now, to be clear, this is a fairly new phenomenon. This situation is the result of fairly recently enacted legislation under the Obama administration. As of January 1 of 2016, it became possible for U.S. passports or renewal thereof or issuance thereof to be denied if an individual was in arrears to the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, essentially for delinquent taxes. Now, to be clear, there's been some recent developments on this. I'm taking this from the website Zero Hedge. It was apparently an article submitted by one Robert Wood via Forbes.com. It also references directly the IRS website, which I've gone ahead and read a recent announcement or a recent posting on the IRS website regarding this. But it's very interesting to note in the past, so basically some things to just get out of the way beforehand. So quoting from the IRS website directly, if you have seriously delinquent tax debt, IRS can notify the State Department. The State Department generally will not issue or renew a passport after receiving certification from the IRS. As of the time of this writing, which is February 3rd, 2017, and that's not a quote, but this is, the IRS has not yet started certifying tax debt to the State Department. Why is this important? Let me just briefly go through the overall situation. The law changed and the enactment occurred January 1 of 2016. So as of that date, it was possible then, statutorily speaking from a legal standpoint, it was possible for U.S. Department of State to refuse renewal of a U.S. passport or issuance of a U.S. passport based on tax delinquency. Prior to that, it was generally only possible for such things to happen in extremely extraordinary cases involving something really strange, like I guess terrorism. But that's way sort of out of left field. It wouldn't be something that would not happen every day. But the more mundane reasons why that would probably happen would be for reasons involving criminal liability or criminal warrants issued essentially criminal warrants issued in pursuance of a given U.S. citizen. It's not going to really be easy, if at all possible, to go ahead and get a passport issued if one has, say, a federal warrant or a major state warrant that's gone through the NCIC system. So criminal matters is one. The other one was delinquent child support. And that was not one that people were most lay folks were very aware of, as a general matter. In fact, in my experience, folks that have seen their passports fail to be renewed due to delinquent child support had no idea it was even possible for that to happen, but it can. What we're talking about here specifically with the IRS, and this is kind of important to note, is as of Jan 1 it became legal. However, prior to the time of this writing, the IRS had yet to start certifying tax delinquencies to the Department of State. So in essence, the Department of State was unaware or ignorant of who was in tax delinquency. That's an important point to note. It was legal to fail to issue the passports, or renew the passports as well, but it also was not a particularly common thing to see anybody's passport not getting renewed due to tax problems, because as of today, essentially, we haven't ever seen the IRS certify delinquent taxes to the Department of State. This is important because it's changing. The IRS, per these recent announcements, is getting ready to go ahead and take matters, is getting ready to go ahead and undertake certifying delinquent tax matters over to the Department of State for further action by the DOS, and the DOS presumably is going to take those certifications, and essentially anytime somebody comes in to renew a passport or be issued a passport, they're going to fail to do so, citing delinquency of taxes. Now, a few things to note, again, from these recent announcements, and these are very recent. This is just within the last 7 days as of February 3rd that we're seeing this information. So pardon me if I'm looking down at this for a fair bit. I myself am just finding out sort of how this stuff is going to be implemented, or at least how this is probably going to be implemented in the future. Seriously, quote unquote, seriously delinquent tax debt is an individual's unpaid, legally enforceable federal tax debt totaling more than $50,000. So that's important. If one owes taxes more than $50,000, then, and it's certified by IRS or the Department of State, that's going to be a problem with respect to passport issuance, including interest penalties, but subject to an inflation adjustment, for which a notice of federal tax lien has been filed, and all administrative remedies under IRC 6320 have lapsed or have been exhausted, or a levy has been issued. So importantly, there's some specifics with respect to the type of delinquent tax we're talking about. Is it a levy? Is it a federal tax lien? Okay, moving forward from that, some tax debt not included in determining seriously delinquent tax debt. So therefore, mitigating factors where one could find themselves having delinquent tax debt certified over to DOS, and one could go in and maybe mitigate that and get one's passport back if some of the following conditions apply, or if, as a condition precedent, a condition already in existence, where they're not going to certify that tax debt over to the IRS. So, it includes tax debt being paid in a timely manner under an installment agreement with the IRS, so an installment agreement, being paid in such a timely manner under an offer in compromise accepted by the IRS, or a settlement agreement entered into with the Department of Justice. Again, all of these are going to mitigate away the possibility of having one's debt certified over as delinquent to the Department of State. For which a collection due process hearing is timely requested in connection with a levy to collect the debt. So essentially a hearing's in process. For which collection has been suspended because a request for innocent spouse relief under IRC section 6015 has been made. So there are certain specific exemptions to the possibility of tax delinquency certification for purposes of U.S. passport issuance. Notably, before denying a passport, the State Department will hold your application for 90 days to allow you to do some of the following: resolve any erroneous certification issues, make full payment of the tax debt, or enter into a satisfactory payment alternative with the IRS. Okay. Also, it should be noted there is no grace period for resolving the debt before the State Department revokes the passport. So essentially what they're saying here, it looks to me, is that once they begin the process of certifying delinquent tax debt, it's going to be almost instantaneous that the passport revocation is going to occur. Much like, or sort of analogically speaking to a notion in the past with respect to sort of outstanding court judgments or pending like DUIs. In the past, it was possible for one to sort of weave through certain legal systems because there was a sort of time delay in between what different courts were doing. So one could have various different pending matters that sort of, as long as the plates kept sort of spinning, for lack of a better term, one could kind of weave their way through the system. I think what they're trying to say with this is that's not going to happen here. As soon as IRS certifies, DOS is going to immediately have a notice, presumably in their system, to go ahead and fail to renew or refuse a renewal in that case, or refuse an issuance of a passport. Okay. The IRS will notify the State Department of the reversal of certification when, if it's erroneous, that's one, you and the IRS enter into an installment agreement. Again, the IRS accepts an offer in compromise. Again, Justice Department enters into a settlement agreement to satisfy the debt. You and the Justice Department do that. Collection is suspended because you request innocent spouse relief, or you make a timely request for collection due process hearing in connection with a levy to collect the debt. So again, if you bring it in under the, if you sort of try to deal with the matter either legally or in terms of, if one is challenging the matter, they need to bring proceedings to challenge it. You can't just sort of let it hang out there. Again, this is very, very new stuff. So I'm not going to get into it much further. It just should be noted. The big thing that should be noted is for the past year, this has been on the books as far as a law. So it's been legally possible for passport refusal of renewal to happen. And it's also been possible for refusal of issuance to happen. But effectively, there was no mechanism for IRS and Department of State to talk to one another. It appears now from these recent announcements that a mechanism is being put into place, and a certification, this certification process is important. I think that basically people are now on notice that a certification process is coming into being, and if one is currently aware that they're delinquent on these matters, it would be a good idea to go ahead and talk to a legal professional such as myself. I'm licensed in the U.S. Tax Court, but please contact, I'm based in Thailand. There are many tax lawyers around the world. It would be a good idea to go ahead and contact someone who deals with these kinds of matters. Moreover, the getting something started with respect to resolving the matter pretty well mitigates the possibility of refusal of renewal, etc. So what I'm trying to say is going ahead and getting this dealt with sort of front-loaded, being proactive and dealing with the matter is probably better than finding oneself in a third-party country and going down to an embassy to get one's passport renewed and finding out, no, that's not going to happen. Oftentimes this can be dealt with. I've handled certain matters relating to that in the past, most notably in sort of child support delinquency cases. But that being said, it's not overly easy. In fact, it's not very easy at all to deal with. And with respect to the IRS, dealing with the IRS on a good day can be a rather cumbersome endeavor depending on the circumstances of the case. So for that reason, those who think that there may be an issue are strongly, strongly urged to perhaps talk to a legal professional rather soon, as this looks like it's coming into effect. And as well, those who think it may be a problem in the future are also well advised to get these matters in hand and deal with them before a real problem comes up.